what do we really teach about grace? And I think that, well, we don't talk about it very much. And I think we don't because it's, in a way, such a premise of what we teach that as we look at it, and especially as we look at this month and as we look at the talk today, in terms of stepping into and moving into prosperity and abundance in our lives, it is because of the grace of God. It is because of the givingness of God, not because we've earned it, not because we've struggled and suffered, not because we do some prayer in some right kind of way, but that God is always giving of itself. And in fact, in the glossary of our Science of Mind, what we call our textbook called the Science of Mind, the definition for grace is the givingness of God, which is always and always and always. And that's really what this series on 4 spiritual laws, and in this month of being awake to prosperity, is what it is about, is waking ourselves up to that givingness of God, because we're so trained by life sometimes to see its absence, and then trained sometimes by our parents, by what we might have grown up in, as thinking whatever we deeply desire in life, we have to work hard or do something different to earn it from a very picky God. And that's not the case. Today in the Science of Mind magazine, the reading for the day was Awake, Alive, and Aware. And if you don't have a spiritual practice and you've been wanting to start a morning practice and think, I don't know where to start, get a Science of Mind or Creative Thought magazine, because there are daily readings and prayers that get you started. And it's easy and it's right there, and it starts moving your mind toward that greater knowing of life, of spirit. So that's a little tip if you're not already doing that. But what Ernest Holmes said at the end of this writing, and the guides are from Ernest Holmes this month, we awake from the dream of lack and unhappiness to the knowledge of abundance and peace. We wake up from this dream we have that there's lack and need, and wake up to the understanding and the awareness of that givingness of God and that abundance everywhere. That is what our practice is to wake us up to. That is the reality that we wake up to. And on planet Earth, because we're living, our bodies are living in this world where it can seem different, we need to keep waking ourselves up. So, of course, all year we've been waking ourselves up to different aspects of the true reality of life in God, in spirit. And then this month we're waking up to prosperity. Last week we did the first step, and let me back up a little bit, that prosperity we're defining in a couple of ways. One is moving forward in joy, which I love, having a life where we have that peace of mind and knowledge of abundance so that we move forward in joy. Edwene Gaines, whose book, The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, we are studying, says, she defines it in 4 ways: a vibrant, healthy, energetic body, relationships that are juicy and wonderful and work all the time, work that we love, and all the money we can spend, or as a minister and teacher of mine said, enough to spare and to share. Love that. And really that it is about awakening to the consciousness of God's presence everywhere. Everywhere we move in life, we recognize God's presence. And so the first law we explored last week got the the one that seems challenging for some of us to swallow last week was tithing. And I know some people weren't here. It's like, even though I didn't say. Tithing is giving 10% of all that comes into our lives to the source of our spiritual food. Sometimes that looks like a center. As I said last week, if I'm doing my job right, that would be this center for those of you who come here. And your spiritual food can also be a friend. It can be an author. It can be another ministers whose works you listen to or read or hear a podcast. So wherever your spiritual food is, you tithe to that. You give 10% of what comes into your life on that as a way to keep God before us. We do that to keep our recognition that all that we have comes from that ever-givingness of God. So as somebody mentioned last week, that they really got the idea. So it's not that we're giving it away. We are returning back a piece of what we've already received. So that was the first spiritual law of prosperity, is tithing. And it's just one of that, get over it and do it. Get over it and do it. This week, the second law we're going to be talking about is the importance of setting clear goals. And when I read that, I kind of went, when I first picked up the book and opened that, I kind of went, ugh. So, little secret about me, I have intended to be a goal setter. And I thought, oh, that sounds so boring and dry. In 10 years, I want to be, I've never been one of those 10-year plan kind of gals. I was very relieved to sit in a circle of ministers at a conference one year, and the question for our small group and all the small groups was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I was kind of like, I'm going to say I don't, and they're just going to think I'm lame and not motivated and whatever. And almost all of the ministers said, well, you know, I don't really live my life that way. So I was very grateful. So goal setting, or the idea of it, I don't love, and yet this isn't what Edwene is talking about. Or she is talking about goals, but she's talking about, what do you deeply desire to have in your life? What do you deeply desire to create in your life? That's what she's talking about. And as we'll see, the importance of that is the way that we direct our faith. As we know, as religious scientists, there's this aspect to God called the law. And the law brings back to us whatever we think about habitually. So the law is always bringing to us what we're thinking about. So great. So if we're thinking about what we don't want all the time, then it's like we're setting goals that are negative. We're setting a bunch of unwants. The thing we fear comes upon us. Job experienced that. So when she's talking about setting goals, she is simply talking about having our minds dwell upon what we desire in our lives so the law can do its work. Now, when we start this as a practice, this kind of goal setting to direct our faith, there's a couple of things that we need to know. And one is that it is okay to have desires. It is okay to have these kinds of goals. It's okay to have. Even as spiritual beings, it's okay to have wants. Jesus said, I quote this every year, I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly, not have it more stingily, more narrow, more holy and penurious. I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly, more full of what we deeply desire. So Jesus said it. Ernest Holmes gave us a little direction, like, is it okay to want that? I don't know if that's so. He said, As long as it hurts no one and expresses more life, it's yours. And I love that, expresses more life. That means, does it stretch you? Does it expand you? And we'll talk more about kind of how that works. But is it something that you become bigger in the expression of? And when you think about some of the things you most deeply desire, aren't there some of them that require you to be a more expanded person? And we know, number one, if what we tend to experience is lack, when we move into the experience and knowing of having, that already is expanding us. That is already making us into a different person. So there is nothing wrong with having, especially when we think of it as expressing. What would express more life in my life? Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, and Edwene comes from the Unity, our sister denomination, so she quotes him a lot. He said this is so cool. This is along the same line. Desire is the onward impulse of the ever-evolving soul. Desire, what we say, I would really like to have that. It is the onward impulse of the ever-evolving soul. What we desire is something that is pushing us to be more. To have more, yes, but really to be more. And Edwene Gaines explains it this way. The longings of the heart are what propel us into the life experiences required for that evolution of consciousness. Let me say that again, because it's kind of a mouthful. The longings of our heart are precisely what propel us into the life experiences that are required for us to evolve. So again, our desires, as we dwell in them, as we call them to us through the law, grow us, evolve us. So it is okay to have wants and desires. Along the way to that, another thing to know is that there will come times for each of us when we have to let go of what we don't want. Many times we find ourselves holding on to something we don't want because what we do want isn't here yet. And we're holding on. And we can't even catch what we do want when it comes in because we're holding on to that thing we don't want. In one workshop I did years and years ago, it was like holding on to a handful of moldy peanuts when the banquet's there. But we have to let go of the moldy peanuts to move it in. Sometimes that's work that doesn't serve us. Sometimes that's a relationship that no longer serves us. To open up to our greater good, we have to let go of that which doesn't serve us. That's that stepping out. That's letting the universe know. Because in our head, if we're hanging on, we're saying, well, this is all I've got, so I'll make do with it. And the law says, okay, you got it. You'll make do with it. That's all you have. Yep, okay, I'll deliver the life experience that keeps that going. So, have to be willing to let go of what we don't want to have the greater what we do want. And then the other thing that we need to know as we step into this goal is that we deserve. We deserve, if we are alive on the planet, we deserve to have a prosperous, abundant life that is filled with what we deeply desire. There is not one person on the planet, no matter what they've been and done, that doesn't deserve to have a life of good. And you know what? Maybe if more of us had lives of good, we would be better people. Because usually not usually, but often what we do is just envy people and hate vibe them because they have what we want that we think we don't deserve. So not deserving doesn't keep us noble. It keeps us in envy and lack and smallness. All of us are expressions of God, or as we often say, children of God. So we are inheritors of all that God is. We are inheritors. We were created in the image and likeness of God. We are inheritors of all that God is. And another thing to know, final thing to know, and this is so important, that we don't limit what we want by what we have now or what we know how to do or receive. We don't limit what we allow ourselves to dream and goal set and want by what we have right now, by our circumstances, by who we are. We don't need to know the how something will come into our lives, because God knows the how. We don't need to know the how. If you've never had a successfully loving relationship, you don't say, well, I'll never have one because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to bring that person to me. I don't know how to be in a relationship. If we set that goal and focus on that as what we want, Spirit knows the how. If we don't know how to create more financial freedom in our lives, if we focus on the lack, we'll never know how, but God knows how to bring it. Edwene has so many great stories because she is so headstrong and started out in such dire circumstances. When she was really getting herself into this thing after she'd started tithing, she wanted to go to Mexico. This was years ago. And there was a trip going on, and it cost $200. She had no idea how to do it. She had no idea where she was going to get the money. She was supporting, as you know, being a single mom, she was supporting her daughter. And they were just barely doing paycheck to paycheck. But she kept knowing it. She kept seeing it. She got a passport. Well, no, I guess they didn't even need a passport in that day. But she got ready for it. She got a suitcase or borrowed a suitcase, figured out some other things to do, and kept doing everything. She had called the person, made the reservation, and the person kept saying, okay, the money's got to be in now. Money's got to be in now. Shall I cancel your space? She said, nope, I know. And she talked to God like she does, said, okay, big fella, you're it's about proving you. I put my faith in you. What's happening? She did what she knew to do. She did what she knew to do. Money wasn't showing up, but she kept her faith. The person called again. She said, nope, I'm going to be there. She was visiting her mother, who lived in another city. And her mother lived in the same house, and her mother had given some money to her sister for something. And so she kind of in the back of her mind said, oh, I'll visit Mom, and maybe Mom will give me a little money since she gave some to my sister. And her mom knew about her trip. She said, oh, so you're going to Mexico? Do you have the money for it yet? And she said, no. And her mother said, wow, that's going to be a challenge, huh? Bum. So she kind of let that idea go, and she went out to get the mail for her mom. And so she's walking in and flipping through it, like some of us do. And then she saw a letter for her. She said, this is weird. I have not received mail at my parents' house for 15 years. That's very odd. She didn't recognize the return address or anything. So she opens it. And it was a letter from a former roommate of hers that she had roomed with this young woman years before she had children, and they had got together, Salvation Army or whatever, furniture, to furnish their apartment. And about 3 months into their living together, she got a job teaching overseas. So she left and figured, you keep the furniture, whatever. So this letter was from that former roommate, and it said, Edwene, I don't know where to find you, but I came across your parents' address in the phone book, so I'm sending this, hoping this will find you. You remember that apartment? We furnished it, Salvation Army. Well, eventually, I got married and moved into a place, and so sold it and found out that some of the pieces that we had were actually quite valuable. I haven't felt okay about keeping the money. I wanted to split half of it with you. And what was the amount in the check? Exactly enough for the trip. And I have heard these kinds of stories over and over. It shows up in the right time. Sometimes like, God, come on, stop being so high drama. Last minute. But so nobody could have planned that. So you need to watch yourself as you set your goals. Say, okay, I want this. Oh, but I'm going to need to have this in order to have this. And I'll have to do that and need to have. No, let Spirit figure out the how. It is that opening ourselves up to that givingness, opening ourselves up to God, that lets that how and the law start working. That's the law's job. So let's look at the goals themselves. How to set goals. First of all, we want to set clear and specific ones. I know sometimes as spiritual beings, we think that to show trust in God and Spirit, that we just say, oh, well, whatever shows up will be great. God knows what I want. Well, Edwene says a couple of things about that really got me thinking. She said, do you call up a store, they've sent you their catalog, do you call them up and they say, hi, what would you like to get? They said, oh, whatever you think. Whatever you think. You don't do that. We don't do that. She said, it's okay to be specific. She had a woman, a student, who wanted more love in her life. So that's what she declared, that's what she focused on, that's what she prayed about, having more love in her life. She got a pregnant dog. Somebody gave her a pregnant dog. What she really wanted was a relationship with a human being. I'm sure the pregnant dog, brought lots of love in her life. But if you have kind of a clear way you would like that, go ahead and say it. Say it. And really check yourself. What is it to be clear about what you want? Sometimes for some of us, that is growth in and of itself, to stand and say, I am claiming this for myself. That's not, then you have the, oh, that's not okay, and that's great, because whatever comes up right there, that's what you can heal. Then you know what beliefs get in the way and have probably been getting in the way from you and the life you desire to have. And you can heal those. It's when you don't know about them that you can't heal them. So we set clear, specific goals. What do you want? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? That's really important. What do you want it to feel like? What's the experience you want? And when you set those goals, set what you want. Not what your mother wants for you. Not what you think you should want. What you want. And I love this about Edwene. She says, you don't have to justify what you want to anybody. And this is a woman who wanted a white Cadillac with white interior, white leather. And her friend said, Edwene, don't you think that's a little ostentatious? I probably would. She said, it's what I want. And, on the journey to that, we learn a lot. But, to get something that specific, when it comes into our lives, we know God's presence. We know God, because there's no way, just like that $200 check from her long-lost friend, there is no way we can orchestrate that. It's got to be a God thing. So you don't have to justify to anybody what you want. You really don't. And I think that's another way we grow. Even if somebody else thinks it's foolish or ostentatious or dumb, you get to decide. We get to decide. Now, as you set some of those clear, specific goals, make a list of them. Keep them before you. Don't just make the list and put it away. No, keep them before you. See them, think of them. And she suggests that you read over the list in the morning and in the evening. She also suggests that you keep it private. Sometimes we run around to precisely the wrong people in our lives and say, I have this dream, I have this goal, and they'll, yeah. And that doesn't help you. So unless you have the right person to share them with, keep them close. And this is really important. Imagine, see yourself achieving it, having it, stepping into it, experiencing it. Make it real to you. Let it be juicy. Let yourself feel the excitement, the content, the love, the enthusiasm, whatever it is for each goal. And if that sounds to some of you suspiciously like the third step of what we teach as spiritual mind treatment, it is. They don't quite have that down in Unity the way we do in our Science of Mind. So I love that. So those of you who want more tips about how to strategically work with goals, that's one of the things we'll be doing more of in the workshop this afternoon. And if any of you have studied spiritual mind treatment, but this has kind of reminded you to get back in it and you'd like a primer, or not a primer, a refresher on it, we're going to, as part of the foundations class, we're going to have a Saturday workshop next Saturday, the 19th, from 10 to 2, to have kind of an experiential day of treatment and the 5 steps of it, the way to actualize in our mind and our being to call forth, to draw in that which we want. So that would be for those of you who already know treatment, but want a refresher. So that's next Saturday. But for those of you who want to know more about and have some practice working with the goals, that's what we'll be doing in the workshop this afternoon. Now, a few more things. As we talked about, these goals grow us. And they grow us because they're pieces that are ours to do. It's not ours to figure out the how. But it is ours to be in communication with Spirit and to ask, what is mine to do in this, in achieving and creating a home for this goal of mine, for this desire of mine? What is mine to do? What is mine to know? Is there something I need to release? Is there something in myself I need to release? Is there something I need to embrace to make this goal, this desire, welcome in my life and to create a space for it? Because if something isn't already in our lives that we've been thinking about and thinking we want, then there is some way we're being that is not welcoming that. So our part is to ask and listen and see what is ours to do, to release, to embrace, to become the home where that goal, that desire can show up. And often, what comes to us will take us out of our comfort zone. Because, a life of just kind of having some stuff, but not what we really want, we get to play small in that. Stepping into a life, the abundant, prosperous life of what we truly desire, can actually be a little scary. It causes us to be bigger people, to step more fully into life. So if there's something you want and you see yourself in it, you get a little scared. That's good. That's good because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. Your soul is showing that this is the way for you to evolve. So that's right on. And finally, I've got a little challenge, or Edwene through me has a little challenge to really start preparing our consciousness to be more open to Spirit. And it's a 21-day challenge. 21 days is one of those numbers that says a habit. That's when a habit really becomes a pattern in us. And so what she invites us to do is for 21 days, do not gossip, do not criticize, do not complain. Some of you will remember I talked last year, I think, about being a complaint-free zone, having our lives be a complaint-free zone. This is practicing that for 21 days. And I would also add in something I was reading on the minister's listserv, to refrain from sarcasm. That kind of goes right in there. And I come from a very sarcastic family, but as I was reading these letters, I realized how hurtful it often is and how it bars intimacy and true communication. So for 21 days, now I'm going to jump on the challenge. For 21 days, refrain from criticizing, complaining, gossiping, and sarcasm. Now, Edwene said what she discovered was the entertaining, charming, fun person she was all of a sudden didn't have very much to say. And she said, ew, is that what I've been entertaining and charming people with? Ew. And so she didn't have much to say for a while. But she said after several days, she said she became more energized. And she said something came upon me that in her old Baptist background was spirit power. And it was like that freshness and purity that comes in when we stop doing that little-minded, ooky stuff, to put a fine point on it. And she says, you know, if you have a day you mess up, you start again. She said, so be very, very careful on the 20th day. Be very, very careful. But that becomes a place where we don't talk too much about purifying ourselves in this teaching, but it becomes a way that we start really, I think, cleaning out our minds and our heart to be more open for that place of spirit. So we're going to take just a moment to practice a little bit of this before we close in prayer. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And think about a goal. Think about something you would love to have an experience in your life, just very quickly. Remembering that it doesn't matter if you know how to do it, if you think you're equipped, anything. Just let that come to mind. And envision it now. See yourself in that experience. What does it look like? What are you doing? What are you feeling? And just really magnify that feeling, that experience of having or doing or seeing or knowing that desire. Make it real inside your being. Feel the excitement, the joy, the peace, the love, whatever those inner experiences are in that desire made manifest. And now ask Spirit, what is it that I need to know? What is it that I need to release? What is it that I need to embrace? What is mine to do in this moment to become more open to the manifestation of this heart's desire? And if nothing is coming up, just repeat that during the week. And my bet is that that will show up while you're driving or while you're in the shower. And so let's move from that place and just open into a prayer of knowing and a prayer of acceptance. That I am so grateful for the givingness of God. I am so grateful to know that whatever it is I most deeply desire, there is a power for good in the universe that created me, that created that desire within me, and that same power I can use. I can make use of to open to have my good. That infinite givingness of the divine, that is all love, all peace, all abundance, all joy, all abundant, full, free life itself, is operating through me now. It is always operating through me, and this day and in this moment, I claim this dream, this desire, this goal as the avenue for that givingness to show up. And I stand in the knowing that I am already enough, that I am already blessed, that this givingness has no string because the receiving is not based on any earning, any struggle. It is based on my willingness to open, to let go, and to make a home inside myself for that abundant, prosperous life. And so I give thanks that this is already showing up, that my mind is already setting itself loose from ideas of littleness and lack that don't serve, that I am waking up to the truth of abundance and joy, that I am waking up to the givingness of God, and that I prove God every day by knowing and claiming that my good is at hand. I trust in it. I accept it. I receive it with gratitude. And being in that place of peaceful poise and answered prayer, I release my word into that law which always and only says yes. And together we say, and so it is.